I don't like theater.
估幾人知你幾多歲咩？
Hi, welcome to the Silver Spleen. My name is William Needles, and this is my review of 29+1. Kieran Pang is an actress, playwright, and theatrical director. She also co-wrote Isabella, a movie that I really enjoyed. She wrote, directed, and starred in the play that 29+1, the movie, is based on. I should probably say up front that I'm not a fan of theater, and I'm usually not a fan of movies whose source material is a stage play. A lot of the time it seems as though the filmmakers forget that the camera can move, or that people don't have to sit on a couch for 15 minutes at a stretch in a movie. Luckily for me, the people who made 29+1 know that. The camera moves, and we go to enough different places that I never felt like I was watching a play. At least, not in terms of movement. Plays are generally dialogue-driven endeavors, and 29+1 is in that way very theatrical. There's a lot of dialogue. Spoiler alert! Remember when I said that this movie was based on a play? It's a one-woman play. In the stage version, Kieran Pang plays two roles, which may at least partially explain why, at one point in the movie, someone thinks that Chrissy Chow is Joyce Chang, and we're apparently supposed to believe it too.
It don't make no motherfucking sense.
But then later, the two characters meet and talk to each other. Impressionism is, I guess, useful in theater, but it's not so useful in movies. It just ends up looking like a Barbara Wong remake of Shallow Hal. Speaking of confusion and a dearth of information, there's a medical revelation late in the third act. I'll give you 3 guesses what it is, and the first 2 don't count. That serves, as far as I can tell, simply to squeeze a little bit of sympathy out of the audience and to set up one scene. Then it's summarily dropped from the story. It felt like a cheap ploy. And speaking of revelations, the film ends with an exhortation masquerading as a life lesson. Step out. And then it says, every stage begins at 0. This is news? The only thing more banal than these words is the use of Paris in general, and the Eiffel Tower in particular, as the absolute apex of meaning and happiness in a woman's life. It's phallocentrism, and it's just wrong. But there's a lot of that at the end of 29+1. Because as if those 2 title cards that would make Tony Robbins blush aren't enough, we get a Kieran Pang film. Actually, since it's her first movie, shouldn't it be the Kieran Pang film? I have to be honest, if that, later on turns out to have been the most accurate label, I'm not gonna mind. It's part of the problem that I have with theater in general. Theater is inherently meretricious and hubristic. There's an innate snobbery and egotism that I simply don't care for. Is get off your ass and do something a life lesson that we really need theater to learn? I never realized my grandmother, who worked in a factory, was a thespian. Neither did her husband, but that's not my point. And before you dismiss my barbarian tastes and ignorance that rather obviously is being used to hide my craven jealousy, bear in mind that the end credits of 29+1 feature footage of 29+1, the play, moving chronologically backwards. I know that because the footage is marked with each year. This movie isn't a celebration of women or life or pluck or even France. It's a celebration of the person who wrote and directed it and probably wanted to star in it. I can't stand to watch movies that are about nothing more than the person who made them. It's the same reason I can't watch Quentin Tarantino's movies. And he's not a woman. Neither is Jim Chim, but I'd gladly make him one. My biggest worry with this review is that I'm going to be branded a misogynist because I'm criticizing the person who wrote and directed this movie, and that person happens to be a woman. But the reasons that I don't like it have nothing to do with estrogen as much as they do with hubris, pedantry, and self-centeredness. But I can also admit, in complete honesty and with absolute objectivity, women will probably enjoy this movie more than I did. I'm a 50-year-old man. I'm definitely not the audience for this movie. In fact, my friend and I, when we went to see this, were the only men in the cinema. If women enjoy this movie, I'm honestly not mad at them. If anything, I'm a little bit jealous because I wanted to enjoy this movie more than I did. The most frustrating thing about 29+1 to me is that while the story and the presentation were not things that I necessarily enjoyed, this movie is a really great showcase for the acting skills of Chrissy Chow and Joyce Cheng. They're both very convincing in their characters. They managed at times to make me forget who they were as actresses and just see their characters. They brought a lot of emotional depth to their portrayals, and they were really entertaining and engaging. Their acting is reason enough to watch this movie, even though I've said all these other terrible things about it. Their acting is so good that it negates all of the, well, I'm not saying it negates it, but it's more than. How about that? I sincerely wouldn't be surprised if either or both of these actresses were nominated for awards, and I think they deserve them. Because look, I can admit, like I said to my friend afterwards, if you told me that in a movie Chrissy Chow was going to have me choking up, I'd have told you to go pound sand. But it happened, and I can admit that today. I just feel bad that these two remarkable and very commendable performances are found in a movie that I just really couldn't enjoy other than the acting. But I'm an uncultured savage, so don't take my opinion too seriously. And if you want to go see it, go watch it. And if you enjoy it, like I said, I'm jealous of you. So go do that. Go see it in a cinema. If you can't see it that way, wait until you can rent it or buy a disc or otherwise pay money for the privilege of watching it. When it gets released to home video, I'll update the description with a link where you could buy a copy. And as long as we're talking about money, please, for my sake, because YouTube is slashing advertiser revenue, please go to my Patreon page and click on it. For very little money, you can really help me out with this channel. I don't make very much money from it, but if I made just enough to cover the cost of tickets and transportation, that would be something. If you enjoyed my review, please let me know. If you didn't, let me know. If you enjoy the channel, please subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again soon.